Good evening, guys. Links to support the channel are in the description. This is a video that I've been wanting to edit and get out to you guys sooner rather than later. That's why this quick intro is going out. Let me set this up for you a little bit. So shortly after this interview, I had converted to Christianity. And I was an atheist interviewing another atheist who had converted to Islam. And I was giving some general atheist objections, because part of my issue that I've noticed online is that a lot of Muslims will focus on converting somebody to Islam based on general deistic arguments. But these deistic arguments can be used for any different God claim or concepts. And then they also try to point out, hey, Christianity's got this logical contradiction, which is assumed on their part. That being said, too, even if you put an X through Christianity and you convince somebody of general deism, that does not mean that Islam is true. So guys, enjoy this video. Please keep in mind, I was an atheist at the time, asking questions to an atheist who is converting to Islam. And this was probably a few months before I ended up converting to Christianity myself. All right, guys, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy the video. Take care.
So what do you want to know specifically?
Well, as an atheist, sometimes in the atheist community, we want to be skeptical until something's demonstrated to us, or that it's been presented to us as factual in a way that we can rationally accept it. So I guess what would have made you decide that this evidence was now credible, or what led you to it? Was it emotion? Was it the argumentation and so on?
It was both, actually. And I try not to listen to emotion on things. It's so unreliable. But it applied there. So like for a month and a half, maybe 2 months, I had been debating with a group of Muslims. And I just found their arguments to be logical and sound. I looked at, other ways for a rebuttal, but I didn't find any, so I had no logical reason to stay an atheist.
So when you say no logical reason, what was the logical reason to accept being a Muslim? Because from my perspective, it's very hard to accept something that I can't see or can't be demonstrated to me.
Right.
Or
Me too.
And I've heard some good arguments where they've said the prime mover. But I've just never heard anything that's linked me to like one God would have to be that. Like I'm trying to figure out what led you, is I guess the best way to put it.
Okay. I have a feeling you won't agree,
Well, that's
because a
okay.
lot of people didn't, so I'm just forewarning you.
Well, we don't have to
So
agree. This is just a chance for you to tell, your
yeah,
side and explain the thought process. And I'm not here to grill you or to make you feel bad or anything like that, because that's just a crappy video in general when that happens.
have
Go
you?
on.
Yeah, have you heard
Well,
of the first cause argument?
yes, that there was a prime mover, something that caused everything. My issue with that, though, is even if we say that there was a first cause, to automatically assign that first cause as an intelligent agent, I think is a leap, because we don't have any demonstration that everything that caused everything had an intelligence behind it, or that every cause is intelligent. So I think that's a jump. And then the other thing that, let's say if we did suppose that there was an intelligent first cause, how can you possibly, out of all the God claims, get that back to one God or one narrative anyway?
Um, well, as far as telling if it's an intelligent being, I mean, it would take intelligence and will to create everything. And I still like believe in the Big Bang and evolution. I just think that somebody started it. Does that make sense?
So, yeah. hmm
Okay.
I'm just wondering why, and this will be the last question on this because we can keep moving on to different things. I'm just wondering how one would arrive at a conclusion that the prime mover has to be intelligent, and then how could we say that from that intelligent prime mover that now it would be Allah versus the Christian version of God, the Trinity, or one of the other versions of God that's been presupposed.
Right. So I hear a lot of atheists not accepting what I'm about to say, which is fine. Um, I look at the world and how complex it is, and I see intelligence. I don't think something that's very low IQ. I don't know if IQ can be like assigned to this, but very low IQ coming up with air out of nowhere or water out of nowhere. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. Have you heard of the infinite regress?
Yes.
That eventually, if we presuppose that all intelligence had to have an intelligence behind it, we
Mm-hmm.
end in an infinite regress because if you presuppose that humans had to have an intelligent designer,
Mm-hmm.
then you can presuppose that um, now God was intelligent, so God must have had an intelligent designer as well. And the logic starts cannibalizing itself. So there's
Mm-hmm.
not really like where it had to be an intelligent designer. We just haven't demonstrated that the prime mover, if it existed or exists, would have to be intelligent.
Well, do you agree with cause and effect, the argument of that? Not having to do with the God, but just that argument.
I believe that when there is something that, like, if we do, I guess the simplest way to put it is that if I drop a bowling ball in the swimming pool,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've caused something and there will be an effect behind it. So in that case, yes.
Okay, and so just taking that concept out for, sorry, my dog is climbing all over me. He thinks he's a lap dog. Stop it. Go. Okay. Um, so if you just take that same concept and say with the Big Bang, would you agree it was cause and effect? I mean,
Well, I in the scenario I played out, I can see me taking the bowling ball and dropping it in the water. I could even go and repeat that for the Big Bang. Um, I can't go back and do that. Oh, just to answer a quick question. Why does an atheist even care why someone chooses to become a theist? Well, because Kara
it's
is a
not like
friend of
that.
mine.
Yeah, it's
Um,
not like that.
I don't. Um, yeah, Kara's a friend. If she feels like I'm being too harsh or mean spirited with any question, Kara can just tell me to knock it off, and I'll knock it off, and we'll go on to a different subject. So it's more so like we want just a good dialogue. So
Right. Well, okay, so back to the Big Bang. It, for lack of a better word, exploded and it caused all sorts of things to happen, right?
I think is the current model, and then it expanded, and the universe has been expanding at a rate ever since.
Okay. So then you would have to have a causer to the Big Bang, right? I mean,
I don't know that I can presuppose that with the infinite regress that we were talking about. Um,
That would only happen if there weren't a being that was eternal, not needing to be created, that had the power to, set off the Big Bang, which would be pretty powerful. Um,
mhm.
Without that, you do have an infinite regress.
Oh, I agree exactly with what you're asserting with that. My only thing though is that I don't have any evidence that from an intelligent versus an unintelligent being that would have caused everything. Um, for example, like complexity isn't really the hallmark or even of design. It's more so simplicity.
Can you expand on that a little bit? What do you mean?
So, like simple machines, simple mechanics. Usually, that's when it starts. Like, for example, I've heard atheists use this argument, which I don't know if it's a good argument. I think it's in some cases bad, but they talk about we breathe through the same hole that we eat through. And so, like, you're eating, and at the same time, you're blocking up your windpipe as you're eating, and then you're done chewing, and then now you can take a breath again.
Mm-hmm. So then, from where you're coming from, the design could have been more practical or efficient. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I would just, and this has to be pure speculation on my part because now I'm almost playing God with my analogy, and you always get in trouble when you play God with an
That's where
analogy.
I was going.
Um, I would just, I just wouldn't see the need for as much complexity, but I also wouldn't see the need for God to do a process of evolution or
Hmm.
um, moving us from one type to another type, or change in species over time through speciation, a process of natural selection by adaptation. So I would actually, if I was to become a theist again, I would think that more consistent with the God concept would be a young earth Christian, would be more in line with what I would envision a God model being.
Why is that?
Because of the simplistic nature and that the scriptures for the Christian, Judeo church and Muslim church, if you connect them with Esau and Ishmael, only
Yeah,
go back like 6,000 years. So from the
yeah.
time Adam was created by God, there only 6,000 years has passed, and so on.
Well, the Quran doesn't say how long it took for everything to come into existence. Um, the universe is, what is it, 13.5, 14.5 billion years old?
Hmm.
So it'd be very possible, if, well, for me, it would be very possible for this being intelligent and having a will to design how evolution would operate, how adaptation would operate, and could just set it in motion just like it is, but be the designer of that. And if we wanted things to change, if we were praying for something, um, we can do that and things can change if he's all knowing. He would have done it from the very beginning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm trying to put my theist hat on, and I kind of get what you're saying in that sense. Um, so I think we've hit the prime mover in the beginning enough, and I don't know that we're going to agree on that. But I would like to know about your journey, like, because you're an atheist, you hang out with a bunch of atheists online, like
Yes.
me and other people, and now you
Yes.
are talking with um, Muslims. One really good friend of mine, Muhammad Yunus, he's a good guy.
He's
Zach
awesome.
Christ, who's I really like Zach. I disagree with him on a lot of things, but he is a good guy, and
Yeah, I
he's
like
actually
Zach.
going to tell you what his religion believes. So, just kind of how was that process?
Oh, okay. So I was debating for about a month and a half, 2 months, and mainly with Zach, but the others too. And some point in there, I became a deist because I started, believing that there was a God. And then that turned into that the God is active in our lives, not just sitting around watching everything happen. So you can reason to what kind of attributes a God would have on every, like, creation, on setting everything in motion. You can think of those attributes. And then what I did is which religion has those attributes and which one's more accurate. I've already read the Bible and studied it. It's inaccurate. It's full of contradictions. It doesn't do it. Um, and so Judaism, I mean, I still think that the prophets from the Bible are there, like Jesus, and I feel like, I mean, those people existed, so Judaism doesn't recognize that. Islam does, and they give women so many rights. It's ridiculous. I love it.
Now, as I've been talking with some of the guys in the chats, and I know other former Muslims from abroad, and the way that a lot of the countries that are Muslim countries, not all of them, but they use, like, for example, if you're in Saudi Arabia and you are a Muslim woman, you are not allowed to uncover.
Mm-hmm.
You're also not allowed to not be a Muslim. Now, if you were
Mm-hmm.
not a Muslim and you came over to Saudi Arabia, you would potentially be okay to not be uncovered, but it would not be advisable to be out on the street and uncovered or face penalties under law. Um,
Right.
so when I look at those examples to how states with Islam as their sponsored religion, how they handle women today, but then I look at examples of that we don't really have a state-sponsored Christian, um, a state that has Christianity as its national religion
Right.
anymore. So it's difficult to compare. Like, would there still be certain restrictions on women? But I just don't. I see just a big difference between how women are handled in one group versus the other.
Yeah. I hear you on that. And the only thing I would think is there's a big difference between culture and religion. The Quran, if you just look at the doctrine, the Quran gives women all sorts of rights. They don't have to cover up. Um, all those things that you just mentioned are not consistent with the Quran. That is man made and culture.
And the way it was explained to me by Zach Christ yesterday is um, it was kind of their covering up a woman's body policy, meaning that they use it in a way they want to protect their women, but they're also trying to protect their men from um, looking at a woman and getting all sexually charged. That's not exactly his words, but that's kind of my paraphrasing of it. But I so you're saying that there's no actual covering practice in the Quran, but then why would in Sharia law it would instruct the covering?
Have to, and nobody can force her to cover. And that is the Quran explanation. So, what you're saying with Sharia law, if that is a law they put in there, that's not from the Quran. If I asked you to find that for me in the Quran, you wouldn't be able to. It's not in the Quran.
I have Moe, who's a Muslim gentleman who I talked to. He says women have to cover up, and then I have Muhammad Yunus, who says yes, covering is a Quranic command. Would either of you gentlemen be able just to cite a verse from the Quran that would indicate that a woman should be covered?
Like,
Now,
While
for
they
full
do that,
disclosure, Kara is committed to her new faith, and she has told me that she feels that at some point she will be. If it's okay if I say it, I apologize if it's not, but she will be getting the hijab, and she will wear some of the traditional Muslim guards because of her
that's
respect for her religion.
that's the only thing I would be. So, it is in the Quran, the hijab, and specifically how to cover yourself. But you can't be forced to do it, is what I'm saying. You cannot be forced to do that.
Zach Christ last night said that if you are in a Muslim area and you agree to live under the Muslim code and you're a Muslim woman, then you've already agreed that if you don't wear the Quran, that you will suffer consequences.
If you don't wear the hijab,
Sorry, the hijab. The
that's all
Quran, of
right.
course, you're not wearing the book.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, you
thank you for
can,
catching.
you're fine. Um, I mean, yeah, you can accumulate sins, but it's not your place. If I wasn't wearing, well, I'm not wearing one now, and you were to tell me I should be covered up, it's none of your business. You have no right to say that. It's between me and Allah, and that's where it stays.
Gotcha.
And
And
one more
go
thing,
ahead,
I'm
go ahead, go ahead.
sorry.
No, 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 go ahead.
As far as covering up, it's not just the woman, and covering up would be sleeves down to your wrists, um, like coverage up top and dressed in pants all the way down to your ankles and not wearing things that are form fitting. That's what the dress code is. And men also have a dress code. It's not just the women. There's an expectation for the men to as well have responsibility for being modest and controlling their desires.
No, I think that's a good add-on too. That they are strict on the men as well as far as um, expressions of aff- affection that they can show to a woman who's not married. For example, we had, I don't know if this is for all groups of Muslims, but we had um, where I work, and I never say the name of the job, but we have Muslim men who come in, and a lot of times we had a female supervisor, and they won't shake the female supervisor's hand out of respect for her. And
Right.
so she studied about the religion, and so she understands that it's not a disrespect thing; it's a respect thing. That her husband should be the man who would touch her or hold her hand. So
That's
I
correct.
get
Yeah.
it, and I would say that yeah, I get where
Yeah.
you're coming from on that.
Yeah,
Now, do you
totally.
have any Muslims around you in your life who are helping you with this journey, like outside of Facebook?
There aren't many around here.
So you're going through this process. You don't have that many Muslims in your life outside of Facebook to talk with. So how um, do you just like communicate on Facebook or, I mean, because a lot of times, like when I became a Christian, I found there was somebody within my life who was a Christian and they mentored me through the process. Um, it
No,
just seems like a
like
tough way to go it alone online.
no, like I said, I went and visited a mosque and I did meet a small group of people there and we exchanged numbers and I sat through a class so I could, learn more about Islam. There's a lot I don't know. So there are some people here. There's just not very many.
Gotcha. So how nervous were you uh, letting people know that you are now not an atheist and you were, I believe at one point you may have told me you were a deist, um, as you were kind of softening your position. Um, uh, how did you feel like when you're getting ready to tell people, "Hey, I'm now being more firm in my commitment. I actually want to be a Muslim.
I was excited and happy. The people that are not going to stick with me, I'd rather them leave. Um, I gained a lot of Muslim friends, so I mean, I was excited about it. You find out who your true friends are about whether me doing that would get in the way of our friendship, and I'd rather know now and not later that they're that kind of person. So I was excited, I was happy, I was ready to go.
You know, I get it. Like when I left Christianity, I had a lot of people who were friends of mine from being a Christian, and they had talked to me. We had hung out, kids' birthday parties, invited over for dinner. The second I no longer believed the same thing as they believed, I was cut right out. So, I mean, I get how scary that can be.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry that happened to you. That's rough to go through that.
It's okay. I hope that you don't have as much of that you have to go through. Um,
It'll be okay.
because there's nothing wrong with and looking. I mean, and from my atheist perspective, we don't live that long. We're not going to be here, but maybe 80, 90 years if some of us are lucky. So if you want to explore being a Muslim now,
Hmm.
and you want to see what that has for you, then I don't see why I have anything negative to say to you about that at all. Um, I can disagree with your reasoning, and you can disagree with my reasoning for still being an atheist, but we can still be friends, so no issues there at all.
No, I've never felt that way, that you would come across that way. You're very reasonable. You are objective. So I appreciate that. It's nice to see the people that actually will stay.
Somebody wants to know, how long have you been a Muslim? Oh, I guess that was for someone else, but you might as well tell them how long you've been a Muslim.
Um, 6 days.
Muhammad Yunus says, "Here's your chance as well, James."
Oh, you asked me about if it was emotional, and this is
Yeah.
going to sound really crazy. I think it's still kind of crazy. And it wouldn't be reliable evidence on anything, but I had a dream, and when I had this dream, I met Prophet Muhammad. So it helped to convince me more that when I had that dream, that this is what I needed to do.
So you had a dream, and how was that dream? Can you describe it to us a little bit?
Um, Hold on. I don't want to blow smoke in the. Yeah, so on the first night of Ramadan, I had a dream where I saw this big wooden house in the middle of a field, and outside of the house was time, and my life was going before me like flashes of my life, maybe the whole life in maybe 5 minutes. It was really fast, and everything was very sad. Everything was dangerous. It was just horrible. Um, I didn't want to go in the house. I was scared of going in the house, and then I woke up on the next day of Ramadan, the second day. I had the same dream. The large wooden house in a field. Time was outside. Events were going before me of my life. And it was so exhausting that I decided to go into the wooden house. And when I went into the wooden house, time had stopped and I was in limbo. And there was a man there. And I was kind of scared of that man. And I loved him too. It was very weird. And all the characteristics of this man apparently matches what Islam thinks he looked like. And I had no idea, so that was kind of creepy. but I didn't want to go to stand next to him just because I was so afraid. I mean, I had a lot of emotions on the outside with time. Um, so he was very understanding. I was like grieving for my life. And then he started to show me my future. And he showed me little snippets of my future. And I watched for a little while, but then I became so like grief stricken that I couldn't watch it any longer. So he made it disappear. And he just sat with me while I just cried. Um, he seemed like he was waiting to have a conversation with me. And then I woke up.
No, thank you for sharing the dream. Sometimes when you tell people that you had a dream, like I know when I was a Christian and I would tell people that I had a dream and it was connected to my religion, they're like, "All right, you're being a religious kook right now. You're talking about a
Yep.
dream sequence."
Yeah, no, it sounds crazy. And I honestly think it's crazy too. So, and it's weird. Like, I will have still discussions with Muslims, and the issues that I'm having, I don't know if all Muslims just like all talk to each other, but there are things that I'm struggling with, and they will just randomly send me a video on it or start talking about it. And they're not knowing that's what it is, but that's what it is. Um, and so I know they're coincidences, and that's not very reliable, but I feel pretty strongly about it. So,
Mhm. I've had I used to, when I had dreams, I would write down the dream. If it was a dream that was describing a play, or that I could describe a place from it or an event from it. And I have no way of knowing if this is just coincidence. You would call it deja vu, but I've had dreams where I wrote down something and then a few years later it happened. And so with dreams, while I'm still incredibly skeptical because I don't know if like maybe my brain played a trick on me, maybe I didn't write this down. There's all kinds of things, but like I had a dream that I was building this new house and just put carpet down. We're putting the drywall up on the inside, and I had a dream of the conversation. And then 2 years later, after our house had actually burnt down,
oh,
then
wow.
I'm in the basement. I'm in the room, and the
Wow.
conversation came hitting me, and then I went and I checked what I had wrote down, and it was very, very close. Now, could that be a coincidence or just a strange thing? Yeah, I mean, I can't really explain that. So,
Right. I'm You're open-minded, and I appreciate that. I see how crazy it is, and it's really hard for me to accept it. So I think that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
well, no, I mean, it's just one of those things. I don't just want to dismiss something just because it sounds completely out of the ordinary or unreasonable. Because I think that, well, it's good to be a skeptic and to not accept it. Like, I won't accept that as in me knowing the future or other dreams that I've had like that. I won't accept that as me knowing the future in advance. But I can't also dismiss that I did have those dreams. So there is maybe something to it.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying is that we got to be skeptical, but we can't be so skeptical to the point that everything is an automatic no or it didn't happen.
Right. I completely agree. That's that is reasonable, I think, a reasonable viewpoint for sure.
Tired atheist, you are much less skeptical than most philosophers, dude.
I
Um,
don't know about that.
I'm pretty skeptical. I'm willing to discuss a lot of things, but as far as what I'm willing to put into practice, like yeah, I mean, I have to have some solid evidence before I land on anything. Like before I step out on a frozen pond, I want to know that a way to check and make sure the ice is frozen down deep enough that my 300-pound frame's not going to go through the ice. I'm not
That's
going
good
to
to
take
know.
another guy's word for it.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
So, any more thoughts about your journey as you're leaving atheism? And
Um,
what do you think about atheism? I guess before we get into some final thoughts, what do you think about atheism now as you're looking back at it through? You have this belief in God. Um, you believe that it's Allah. How do you look back at atheists and atheism now?
um, I mean, they're people. And as far as the arguments go, they're usually very intelligent and logical people. Um, and I do feel like atheism is illogical, and I really think people are just over analyzing is what they're doing, is over analyzing things. Um, but I don't like it when people say atheists don't have meaning, because you do. There's a lot of meaning. It's kind of insulting. Um, or when they say that all you're going to do as an atheist, why don't you just murder somebody? It's a dumb argument. It's horrible that somebody would even come up with that. So I really like empathize with atheism, and it's intelligent. It is intelligent, and not like what people say.
And Muhammad Yunus would like me to know that no, atheism is not logical.
It's not. It's illogical.
Muhammad, we can definitely debate the premises of atheism sometime. I don't really want to um, go too much down into why I think it's a very logical position, because I want to keep the focus on Kara and her story. Mo, you should change. You should call yourself the tired friendly atheist. Well, I appreciate that. But I think that the tired friendly or friendly atheist is taken, so I don't want to get confused with that guy.
And somebody said, whatever, you need to justify your conversion. I don't need to justify anything. I, if you don't agree with it, then that's fine. We're not supposed to force anything on you. So I don't need to justify it. It's already justified for me. Um, and perhaps you do overanalyze and you don't like me saying that. But I just wanted to be clear. I don't have to justify.
No, I mean that's an excellent point, that we're not required to justify our beliefs to everyone, and our lack of beliefs in the atheist case. Um, but we do have dialogues, and I would encourage more friendly dialogue and more
Yes.
friendly conversation. I think that it's very illogical to not want to have a conversation with somebody in a respectful way. I don't know what would benefit the conversation by, and I've seen these videos where they get somebody on the video and they put them in the box and they just dump on them.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that progresses the conversation or dialogue further. So I would agree
Yeah.
with you. You don't have to justify your beliefs to anybody.
Right. I'm not forcing it on them. And yeah, people get, I think, pretty irrational and just start dumping on people. And I hate seeing that. It's not intelligent. It doesn't further the conversation, like you said. It doesn't present more questions and answers. So I'm so happy you don't do that. Not at all.
Mo, you and I will have to talk about your thoughts on atheism leads to nihilism, though.
Yeah, that's what he thinks. Be prepared to answer about your worldview. Love you, Mo.
I will just kind of hit that one real quick, though. The thing with that, it leads to nihilism. And, actually, that's going to open up a whole can of worms. We better have that conversation
You have no
on
idea.
another post, because there's strong argument that even potentially in our evolutionary process, that part of the development led to religions, is in how we grouped into different people groups. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And if you do end up having that debate, please tag me. I would love to see you have a debate with Mo. He's very opinionated.
Mo, all you need is just a smartphone with a set of headphones, and we can dialogue. I do know that in philosophy, you must be able to justify your position, depending on what kind of conversation you want to have. For example, if you
Yes.
want to have a strictly philosophical point, then I would take the position of agnostic in that discussion. If you want to have it using how we demonstrate it, for example, I would use the term atheist in the colloquial sense, because I don't believe um, that any religion can actually go back and connect themselves to the prime mover. There's absolutely, in my opinion, no way to make that leap from my God that was first mentioned, that I can trace back about 6,000 years ago, has to be this prime mover that was not um, mentioned for over 4.5 billion years on this planet up until then.
Right.
It's just a slippery slope. But yeah, that I would take the position of agnostic on the prime mover, but I would do the colloquial definition and be an atheist when it comes to believing that I don't believe that the Muslim God, the Christian God, or Jewish God exists.
Right. And you and I are just talking. We're not
Yeah.
really having an official debate. And so
Well, official
nobody has to
debates.
justify,
Yeah.
what they believe. If you're trying to understand, then you can do that. But because the thing is, if somebody wants you to justify it, they want you to prove them wrong and that you are right. I think that really doesn't do much. And so when you have a discussion, you can actually exchange ideas, understand things, be open minded.
hmm I mean, I completely agree. Um, and I think that discussions actually do better than debates, because debates don't do anything other than I'm going to take and land on my hardline position for this conversation.
Yep.
You're going to run to your hardline side, and then our conversation isn't going to have really any meaning behind it at all. And at the end of the day, either all the Muslim people who are watching are going to agree with the Muslim side, or the atheist people are either going to agree with me, or
Yep.
there's going to be somebody who's going to say, um, I agree with James, but he could have done better arguing this way, or I agree with
Yep.
Kara, but if she just knew this, then. So yeah, I'm not a fan of debates either.
Yeah. It seems to be a little bit useless in my opinion. It, like you said, it just reinforces the position that you are already in. Um, so discussion's much better.
hmm So just to address, Mo asked me a question if I knew what nihilism is, and it's basically the rejection of all religion and the rejection of moral code, and eventually the belief that life is meaningless. Um, I don't know how anybody, and I know a few nihilists, like, but the thing though is that while I'm here, I have meaning. While I'm going to console my daughter in a little bit about her poor hamster, that's meaning for her that I'm going to take her out back and we're going to have to bury her hamster. I have a daughter off the bus who loves her daddy. To say that an atheist doesn't have meaning, or for an atheist to arrive and be a complete nihilist, you might find some, but I think that you'll find some religious people that get so depressed in their dogma as well that um, they believe that it's bleak. I mean, there's a
Right.
reason why Pascal's wager is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And see, that's what I was talking about earlier. It's offensive and ignorant when people say that atheists don't have meaning. What they're saying is that the meaning for a higher power is the only meaning you can have, so therefore your subjective meaning doesn't matter. And that's ridiculous because it matters a lot. You know what I mean?
hmm And I think that with the thing with, and the comments are coming in so fast now, it's hard to even follow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
so I would say that for an atheist, our life and meaning is what we make it. Um, I would say that I completely get how it might be comforting from the religious perspective to have your life and your purpose being laid out for you, meaning that you are created with a purpose to be, if you're a Christian, to be with Jesus forever, and so on. So I mean, I get where that would be comforting. Oh, she's got a puppy.
Sorry, this is Charlie. He thinks he's a lap dog. He's not.
He's a big dog.
He's like 35 pounds.
Also, any new people watching this page, if you like this page, you'll see when I'm live, and then we can have a discussion as well. And I'm looking at the time. I figure we'll go like maybe 6 or 7 more minutes. I don't really like a video to go over an hour. I
Oh,
think that
for sure.
sometimes they beat it. It ends up beating a dead horse. And then we start playing games with contestants. I'm
That's
not
true.
knocking you though, Carrot, or Renee, if you are watching. I think it's very lovely what you do. So, anything else you would like to throw out about your walk, your journey?
Um, I am having issue with, you mentioned dress code. That's, I think, a really hard thing for me because I feel invisible when I follow the dress code. Um, so that is taking some getting used to. And the only reason I'm doing it, because nobody's forcing me to do it or bothering me about it, is because it does say in the Quran to cover yourself. Um, and to be modest. And my idea of modesty is very different than what Allah has set out for modesty. So, like I said, nobody is forcing me to.
So I wanted to add this clip at the very end and thank you guys for watching. As we know now, I'm older, I'm wiser, and I know more than what I did when I did this interview. I believe sometime in 2020, I can't remember the exact date, but shortly thereafter, like I mentioned, I became a Christian. There was a lot of people who had switched positions at that particular time. I don't really recall anybody going atheist, but we had a couple people go Muslim. And like I said, my biggest pushback that I want you to take from after this video, and something I still feel strongly about, is that for some reason, people think that learning deism or arguments that get you to general theism automatically make you Muslim or take you to Islam. And that's just an oversimplification of what they believe. They want to try to say that it's only one God, one creator. It's just simply submitting and recognizing and acknowledging that fact. But plain and simple truth is, it is not. There's more to it, and you and I know better, and I plan on doing more videos addressing this. I do plan on tackling atheism at some point, so buckle up. Thank you guys again for watching. Please like and subscribe. Links to support the channel are in the description. Until next time, guys, take care of each other.
They like riding, but I know that they ain't. Ride or die. I go hard in the paint, yeah, homie, I'm a saint. Ride or die.